My husband called me fat, so I ruined Christmas dinner. So ever since I had my son months ago, my husband has started making indirect comments about my body. He never says any hurtful words, but I find his observations, as he calls it, hurtful. For example, he'd see me wearing an old top and say, "Oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though." Or when he looks at my waist and says, "Wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide." Basically, passive stuff that I tried to ignore today, I learned it extended to friends and family. For your information, this went on for months and months and months. We went to Christmas celebration at his family's home. My SIL complimented my floral maxi dress, and my husband said, "I agree it looks nice on you. Though I have to admit that your waist could get smaller than this." Awkward silence took over. I was absolutely fuming, and this was my last straw. So I got up from my chair in the middle of dinner and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Shut up about my body!" He was absolutely speechless as his family stared while some others tried to get me to calm down. But situation got more tense and dinner ended up being cut short and my husband storming off to his friend's place to spend the night upon leaving a very nasty text saying I embarrassed him and made a scene over an observation he made. He called me childish and told me to get therapy for my insecurities instead of verbally abusing him and scaring his family. Now I feel like an absolute idiot a-hole and like I ruined Christmas for him and everybody with my oversensitivity. Am I the a-hole? Response 1. I think the last thing your husband really wants is for you to get therapy. If you do, you'll discover that he is an emotionally abusive bully and stop feeling guilty for refusing to put up with his BS. Not the a-hole, but your husband is. Do as he recommended and get therapy so that you can regain the self-confidence he has eroded with his cruel observations. Reply 1. I think the last thing your husband really wants is for you to get therapy. Yay, this part. He definitely just wants her to feel crazy and overly sensitive. Reply 2. Agree. This is gaslighting 101, the default position of abusers and bullies. OP deserves so much better than this. Reply 3. I 100% agree. OP should in fact text this back to him. Stop gaslighting me. You've been abusive and a bully. You need therapy to figure this out, because if not, our marriage may be over. Reply 4. Reactive abuse, where they needle you till you lose it, and then point and act surprised and hurt. This isn't a small thing, and it's unlikely to stop. Your self-esteem will be fine when you don't hear him being an AH all the time. Reply 5. You notice how OP says that he calls them observations? OP is in denial. She told him that his comments were mean and hurtful, and he was like, "No, these are observations. You're unattractive and crazy." Then he continued to say them, and say them in front of family members to make it even more degrading and embarrassing. Response 2. NTA, divorce him. He's gaslighting you. His observations, as he calls them, are all direct insults. He is actively body shaming you, likely on purpose and fully aware of what he's doing. He wants you back as you were before and fails to realize that bodies change. He is abusing you mentally, verbally. You simply reach the breaking point and let it out. Don't start bottling up again. Rebuke him every time he says something, in front of everyone, until he either learns or leaves. Or in other words, he's shown his true colors. Reply 1. Nitpick. He's not gaslighting. He's straight up insulting her. Gaslighting is making someone doubt their own experience so they stop trusting their perceptions. Reply 2, which he did by trying to make her believe they're just neutral observations. Made her bottle it all up and doubt herself, to the point where she broke down and afterward had to consult Am I the a-hole whether she was correct to defend herself. That constitutes gaslighting. Reply 3, NTA, what the hell? If my observation that OP's husband deserves to F off is true, surely we must share it with him, right? Who TF talks like that and then defends themselves by saying they were just observing stuff? Reply 4. I normally hate how Reddit jumps straight to divorce/sigh, breaking up, but I gotta say I agree here. Like, look, having a kid is hard on dads too. They also experience hormone changes, grieving the loss of their old life, feeling like their wife/GF isn't theirs anymore, etc. And I say this as a woman. So if this was a case of one or two offhanded, Oh, carp, I spoke my carpty intrusive thought aloud because I'm so exhausted. Comments about your body's changes. I'd still say F him for that. Definitely confront him and let him know how awful it makes you feel. But a new kid is hard on everyone, and it's not something to end an otherwise fine relationship over. But you say he's been doing this consistently over the course of multiple months in front of other effing people? Absolutely not. This does fall under the realm of emotional abuse, if you ask me. You're allowed to be a dick to your partner sometimes. We are all only human. But this is not that. This is a concerted effort to break down your self-confidence, esteem, and eventually self-worth. No decent man thinks insulting his wife/GF's body, which just created a new life, thank you very much, is in any way okay or acceptable thing to do. This is not the kind of example of a loving relationship you want your kid to grow up around. OP, I know it's very much not the easy choice, but unless he's suffering from some really severe depression or something, and even then, I'm skeptical, leave him. Not the a-hole. Reply 5. The thing about this situation is it's almost certainly not getting better. A man whose wife goes through the physical trauma of birth and its lasting impacts on her body, and all he can see is she isn't a hot 20 years old anymore, is not going to appreciate her physical sacrifices. He's not going to see it as something she did for him to give birth to their child. He sees it as he lost his sexy living fleshlight and his breathing blow-up doll got stretched out. He will almost inevitably leave her for someone half his age and tell all his buddies his wife let herself go, and he deserved better. There's no marriage left to save once the guy's mentality stoops this low, because he clearly doesn't respect the mother of his child at all. Response 3, NTA. For example, he'd see me wearing an old top and say, "Oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though." Or when he looks at my waist and says, "Wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide." This is not passive-aggressive, and it is not an observation. It is degrading, humiliating, and abusive. He's gaslighting you. The fact the comment during Christmas dinner was met with awkward silence shows that people see he is being an AH to you. He embarrassed himself and started the scene. You simply had enough of his BS and stood up for yourself. Good for you. Please save yourself and your child from this toxic relationship. Reply 1. I just had a friend who had a similar story as this. She told her fiancé's mother about some of the comments he was about her, body, makeup, etc. And his mother gave him carp, and he was angry that she would spread their private business. She got a large argument with him more than once, and then was like, "Why does it embarrass you? Why do you feel bad about the fact your mother is mad about this?" Maybe there is a reason you're mad/angry/embarrassed. Not because the information is private, but because part if you knows that you should feel embarrassed and guilty over your crappy behavior. Not the a-hole. This dude is terrible. If my husband had made sly-ass comments about how my battered life-giving body looked after I made a human, his child, I'd be letting the whole damn world know his character. Let him drown under the weight of their disapproval. He ruins his own character. The silence after he said that to you showed they agreed, but weren't standing up for you. You need to stand up for yourself. Get therapy, even alone, especially alone. Reply 2. Can you imagine? It's like letting someone Sherpa your bag up a mountain for you and then being like, "Ooh, you're sweaty." Reply 3. For sure alone. Never go to therapy with your abuser. It just helps them learn how to be more down low with the abuse. And this is abuse. Please look seriously at leaving him. Take care of yourself. Response 4, NTA. So basically he's telling you he married you for your body and now it's gone to pot because you birthed him a baby? How's his hairline? How's his waistline? Response 5. Repeat after me. Just an observation, but it seems like you are trying to motivate me to lose the weight and return to my pre-baby body by your passive-aggressive remarks. In reality, what is occurring is you fomenting anger and frustration in me. I have less joy in living with you because you are making me feel less than attractive, less than happy, less than worthy, less than loving, less than human. Is this a lesson you want to teach our child? Reply 1. This is very well said, but what are the chances that he's the type of guy who's going to be receptive to that kind of language? Reply 2. Yeah, the sad truth is that those words won't mean anything to him. He doesn't love her. It's all about his pee-pee. Response 6. NTA at all. His observations are always cruel and uncalled for. To say it in front of others is amazingly hurtful, especially in response to a compliment made to you. He is trying to hurt and shame you about changes due to pregnancy. Even if you didn't have a baby, your body would change over time. Your husband is a major a-hole who embarrassed himself by voicing his opinions about your body in front of his family. Bodies change, people age. If he can't accept that, then you're going to have a hard marriage. Take care of yourself and baby, and keep telling him to keep his opinions to himself. Reply 1. Dude, tried to rob her for compliments given by others. He's more than criticizing her. He's on a project of withholding joy so she learns. The compliment was for her, and he twisted it. Reply 2. If my brother or son talked to partners this way at all, let alone on front of me, I would absolutely chuck my sandal at their head. I feel like the family sucks too. Reply 3. Yeah, guarantee he purposely did it in a situation where you would have no choice but to either just put up with it or be the one to make a scene. You chose wisely. Response 7. Those aren't casual observations. It's actually abusive. To be honest, I would consider leaving him seriously. You had a baby. Babies change your body. He definitely is the AH and should be the one to seek therapy. You should too, but not because his observation exposes insecurities, but because he's actively trying to passive-aggressively shame you into weight loss. Reply 1. My concern is for what he is going to say to their child/children. Growing up with a father like that, the kid is going to be on the pathway to an eating disorder. OP, not the a-hole. But you really need to consider the best course of action for you and your child. This is not a healthy environment. Your husband doesn't matter. His family certainly doesn't matter. All that matters is you and your child. Reply 2. Can confirm. Have father who was like that. Now recovering from eating disorder. It's like living in a very specific kind of hell. Reply 3. My mother used to do this to me. I ended up with bulimia and anorexia. Always with the little digs. I was a size 8, which was fine as I'm only 5 foot. I ended up just over 5 stone and in hospital. Now I've gone the other way and I'm a compulsive eater and now need to lose a lot of weight. That started after my husband died. I have no idea how to stop it. All because my mom used to taunt me about her perceived observations of my weight. Response 8. NTA. Your husband is the one making you feel insecure. He sounds extremely manipulative. There is also no way his family was scared of you. You should see a counselor, not for the reasons he suggested, but because you are in an unhappy and unhealthy relationship and you need to get some support. If you want to stay married, then you should also seek out marriage counseling because this dynamic with your husband is not okay. Reply 1. OMG, this showed my husband this. He is appalled. That's not healthy for you or your child. Agreed with aficionado. Therapy will help you see his actions are not okay. Response 9. NTA. Your husband is horrible. Start making observations about him if he's going to be that way. You literally carried your child for him. Reply 1. Wow. Honey, has your dick always been that tiny? I like your penis and all, but it could stand to be a lot bigger. Wow, I didn't know your balls could get that saggy. How interesting. Reply 2. Laughing so hard over this. And I would like to add, what do you mean I'm insulting you? Look, these are just neutral observations. You need to stop being so sensitive. Get some therapy, please, husband. It's embarrassing when you overreact like this. Response 10. NTA. These aren't observations, and they sure aren't passive. Your husband can't say what I'd like, or I'll get banned. Reply 1. I'd like to tell OP's husband all the observations us Redditors have made about him. From my observations, I say OP could afford to lose about 200 pounds of dead weight by divorcing that garbage man. I think she'd feel a lot more confident too. Response 11. I would have responded to each and every one of his observations with, you mean this body that grew and birthed our son? You think there's something wrong with this body? You can have the next baby. Response 12. NTA. This is what abusers do. They wear you down and then try to make you look crazy. Time to leave. Reply 1. Yes. Read, why does he do that? It's all covered in there. He abuses her, then makes her out to be nuts. Edit, OP, I found it. Your husband is the water torturer, though his observations are pretty obvious abuse. /2014-02/9 types of abusers who are you.html. Response 13. Yikes. He's definitely the AH here, gaslighting you by couching horrific insults as observations. You had a baby a few months ago, for F's sake. Perhaps you could have handled it better by shutting these observations down earlier and not making a scene at Christmas. But I get that it was the last straw for you, and he publicly insulted you in front of everyone. He's been running you down for months and is aghast that you finally used the female word. Your husband sounds like he'd make a great ex. Just saying, not the a-hole. Reply 1. OP, you are deaf experiencing gaslighting. I think you finally snapped, and not the a-hole. To go a bit further, it may help you to figure why, in this dynamic, you didn't feel empowered to shut this down earlier. You don't deserve these abusive remarks couched as observations. Response 14. NTA. Your husband's observations are straight-up body-shaming insults. I would be furious with him, as he is intentionally hurting you by saying these things. You didn't ruin dinner. He did. Your response was a knee-jerk reaction to an issue that's been building to a boiling point for months. Reply 1. Man, I really didn't think I married someone so stupid. You used to seem so intelligent, but not anymore. What? It was just an observation. Sorry you married an AHOP, him gaslighting you into thinking you need help. You do, though. You need a divorce lawyer. Response fiend. NTA. You grew a whole-ass separate person in that body, and your husband sounds like a complete and utter tool. He shouldn't have picked on you until you snapped. Response 16. Next step is either a therapist or a divorce lawyer. Your marriage can't continue this way, and you are right in standing up for yourself. Reply 1, or OP could see a therapist and get divorced. Win-win. Not the a-hole. He doesn't respect you or the toll making a baby took on your body. Throw the whole man out. Also, his gaslighting is gross. You deserve better. Response 17. My ex used to make pig snorts when I ate. Easiest 200 pounds I ever lost, with just one stroke of a judge's pen. Not the a-hole. Response 18. Strong. Not the a-hole. First, his observations prior to Christmas dinner were not passive in any way, shape, or form. Let's call them what they are: insults. He was body-shaming you for the changes your body went through while bringing his son into the world. The absolute balls, or lack thereof in his case, it takes to insult your wife in front of your family, then to try to gaslight you into believing you embarrassed him. Don't let him play the victim. He's trying to emotionally manipulate you. I would think long and hard about your relationship. At the minimum, he needs some therapy. You did nothing wrong. He pushed you into having that outburst. I mean, dang, you are only human, and enough is enough. I would call all the women of his family over and have him sit in the middle while you read out loud all the horrible things he said to you, and then leave him, take your baby, since he's so ungrateful. Response 20. His so-called observations are cutting you down and telling you you're too fat, too saggy, too something, and not good enough. He's a giant a-hole of epic proportions, and if it were me, I'd have climbed down his throat long before this, and tell him he's the one who's been doing the verbal abuse and embarrassing you in front of everybody. So what's his excuse for it? Tell him to feel free to spend his time away until he can apologize and stop abusing you. All you did was loudly call him out on it, not the a-hole.